Yo, how's it going everybody? Today's video is going to be a little bit more advanced than my other videos. This is more of a mid-game and end-game thing, and this video is of course about gems and tempering. And we'll go ahead and break down what gems are the best, and specifically for whatever DPS you deal, such as ranged, magic, or melee. And if you're a tank or if you're a healer, I'll go ahead and get into the specifics of all that. And not only gems, I'll be talking about Lunafrosts as well. Those are a different type of gem. And we'll also be talking about tempering. Now, by the time this video comes out, the Archeage Classic Beta will have ended, and we'll be preparing for launch on August 4th. I hope you guys had sufficient time to prepare your keybinds, your graphic settings, get familiar with the game again, because Archeage is very different than how it is from Unchained if you recently played Unchained, or any of the private servers, or even live. And we're going back to the great times of Archeage. But let's go ahead and get into this video. So it's come to my attention that I never really explained regrading in Archeage, which is like the whole entire point of the gear system in Archeage. But it's very simple, it's not really hard to understand, that's why I didn't really explain it. But as you can see here, you just put your weapon in here, you get a regrade scroll, and you can use a regrade charm. You probably won't until Celestial. I highly suggest you don't until Celestial. And you just keep clicking this button until it goes up. It's very, very simple. Now, at Celestial is when it gets a little bit different. At Celestial, this is when you decide to use things like a Resplendent regrade. And with a Resplendent regrade, you see Success Chance, Destruction, Degrade Chance. Now, at Celestial, you do have a chance, of course, to degrade back to Unique. You have a chance to double proc to Epic when you use a Resplendent scroll, and you have a chance to go Divine as well. Now, I highly suggest you take all your gears to Celestial with a regular scroll. You just keep enchanting. Of course, it has a cost. It's very, very expensive. This is like cheap because this is just like a level, this is a questing thing, like level 15. Now, it'll be very expensive. I believe it was like 100 gold for my two-hander obsidian at Unique. And that's just to hit it. That's just a chance. Regrading is a very, very hellish experience. Now, of course, once again, I suggest going Celestial, then starting to use Resplendent scrolls. If you get a Divine, you're happy. If you get an Epic, that's Endgame for a very long time. But that is just a little bit of what regrading is. And of course, I don't have any scrolls in the beta. Sadly, I didn't really play the beta that much this time around, so I can't really properly demonstrate. But there's tons of videos, tons of other resources if you want to see what it looks like. I'll even put something overlaid, like a GIF or something like that, that shows somebody going through the nightmarish process of regrading. But that is regrading, and I wanted to talk about that in this video as well, because this is a little bit of an advanced gearing. It's a continuation from my gear progression video, and I wanted to just include it in here as well. I want to talk about Lunadrops and Lunafrosts. Now, specifically, I have the loyalty token shop pulled up, but you'll probably find these in the marketplace, and of course the loyalty shop is also a good way to obtain these. Now, what are Lunadrops? Lunadrops are special pieces. These are guaranteed to go into your gear. It's just an extra way to add more of your main stat, so since I'm a Dark Runner, I would be aiming for the Strength main stat, of course. And if you were something like a Mage, you'd probably be going for Intelligence, and a Healer would be going for something like Spirit. And if you're just a tank, something like a Skull Knight, or maybe an Abolisher, like you plan to be like a tanky tank, you'd probably go something like Stamina. And then Agility, you can also go as a Dark Runner, but mostly Archer DPS or range DPS will be going Agility. So let's talk about where you put these Lunadrops. As you can see in the requirements, you put one on the head, chest, waist, legs, hands, feet, wrists, and your undergarments, which would be your underwear. Now, these are pretty simple, not too much explaining to be done. You want to go ahead and try and get the best you can, and I believe the best in this version are these Arcane Lunadrops, these Astral Fire, Astral Earth. I believe these are the best. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure which Lunadrops were the best in 3.0 version of Archeage. But I think the ones from the loyalty token shop were always pretty much the best to put into your gear, just for the extra main stats. And of course, the other easy guaranteed way to gem your gear is a Lunafrost, and these go in your jewelry sockets, aka your ear, fingers, necks, instruments, and what that means is earrings, rings, your necklace, and your instrument. These are pretty self-explanatory as well. It's pretty obvious which one you want to get. Magic attack, melee attack, range attack, healing power, not too complicated. I think there is one, yes, there are ones for defense as well. So of course you go and choose accordingly to your class or what you feel that you need. For me, I would be, of course I'm a Dark Runner, so I would be going melee attack. Once again, these are guaranteed. You don't have to worry about these breaking like regular gems. Lunafrosts and Lunadrops are usually always guaranteed. And by usually, I mean pretty much like 99% of the scenario. If it breaks, it has to be like a glitch or something. You gotta contact the mods, you gotta contact the Darus, you gotta let them know. But that probably won't happen. But once again, Lunafrosts and Lunagems are really easy ways to get some easy power in your gear. And you want to do this when you start getting something around like T3 Obsidian gear, because you'll probably be at T3 for quite a while. And then you'll go ahead and probably have to gem this up again. I don't remember if it carries over. I don't believe so. Once again, please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I'll go ahead and pin your comment so everybody else can know. But I'm pretty sure the Lunadrops and the Lunafrosts, you have to rechange them again. Some other Lunafrosts that are important, that are also not located in the loyalty shop, these are instead in the honor shop. And these are some pretty important Lunafrosts that you want to consider putting into your gear. I believe some of these are the best for every class, of course, and I'll go ahead and discuss those. Now, the first Lunafrost that I want to talk about would be the toughness one. Now, toughness is a very important stat, and later in the video, I go a little bit more in depth into how good toughness is in the Lunagem, section. Now, toughness, you want these in your legs and your feet, I believe. There is a better chest Lunafrost that you would want to put in your chest instead of these, but toughness in your legs and feet, I think, are a given. In your chest, you want to have this received damage decrease Lunafrost. Just 3% received less damage. Amazing. I think every class wants this. I think it's pretty much non-negotiable. I mean, of course, you can build however you want, but if you want to be quote-unquote meta, this is pretty much the best one and gives you the best bang for your buck. And once again, I want to reiterate that Lunafrosts do not break. These are 100% guaranteed. You just buy it, slap it in. No RNG involved, which is amazing. And now we come to the critical damage increase ones. These go in your gloves or your hands. Now, of course, there's 4 of them. There's one for melee critical damage, one for magic critical damage, one for range critical damage, and there's also one for crit heal bonus. Of course, you just slot specifically to whatever class you're playing: healer, range, magic, melee, DPS. And the last Lunafrost, these will be going in your weapons. Now, make sure you look at the requirements when you buy these. As you can see, this one is for one-handed weapons, right and left. You want to make sure that if you're dual wield, like using 2 daggers as an archer, you want to make sure that these are the correct ones, because as you can see here, this is a 2-hand weapon, so you wouldn't buy these for if you're using 2 one-hand weapons, obviously. And that'll just be a waste of honor, so you want to make sure that you look at the requirements for these Lunafrosts. But of course, once again, just melee skill damage, magic skill damage, range skill damage, and healing increase. And once again, make sure you look at the 2-hand and 1-hand. That is very important. Also, another thing I would like to mention, I believe undergarments are not going to be on release of the game, but they will be coming into the game later. So eventually, you would go ahead and slap one of these Lunatears instead of a Lunadrop into your undergarments. It's only 15k honor, not too much of a farm. Pretty reasonable. Once again, these also do not break, no RNG. They work the same as Lunadrops and Lunafrosts, all 100% guaranteed. And you would go ahead and put this instead of the drop inside your undergarments, because I believe drops go in your undergarments as well, like I talked about earlier. But you would pretty much just go ahead and put this Lunatear. It's just instead of 9 of your main stat, you get 15, which is amazing. You want as much as your main stat in this game as possible. You do not want to split stats. Of course, splitting stats is okay. If you're like a Dark Runner, going strength and having your secondary stat be agility is fine for your melee crit, but you don't want to split like half and half. You want like as much of your main stat as possible. And before I forget, of course, your back, which is your cloak. It's in this slot. This also has a Lunafrost that you want to slot in. Now, these are a little bit of a cost. These should be a little bit pricey on the marketplace, of course, and you'll have to wait a little bit to slot this in. But eventually, you want to make sure you get one of these in. And once again, of course, you want to get for your class. Of course, I'm a Dark Runner. I will be using the Fire Lunafrost since it gives strength. And these are a little bit special. As you can see, it's a combo effect. So each one does something different. So this one increases strength for every attack, stacks up to 5 times, and increases all attacks plus 3 when you get the max stacks. So this one is more focused on attacking. You just attack a bunch of times and you get more of your main stats, so you do more damage. I think it's the same with the Gale. Is this agility? The Wave would be intelligence. Earth would be... see, the Earth is a little bit different. So the Earth is more of a tank one, because you can restore your health when you're attacked. And it also gives you stam. This is a pretty decent one for like Skull Knight or something like that. It's a good option. I think if I was a Skull Knight, I'd probably just use the intelligence one anyways. It's not too much of a difference, but that's just preference. And you also have the life one, which would be for healers. And this gives magic attacks a chance to regen mana, which is really good for healers. And of course, you get spirit. Now, of course, you can buy these or make them yourself. So do what you will with that. But this should cover all the Lunafrosts. And I actually almost forgot this one when I was making the video, but I remembered that the cloak also had one. And I think that about wraps it up for Lunafrost, Lunadrops, and finally the Lunatear. And we'll go ahead and talk about the Lunagems now. Now let's talk about regular Lunagems. Now, what are these? These are gems that go in your sockets. For example, let's see if I can pull up a weapon that someone has or armor. Here we go. So where you see socket Lunagem, depending on the not tier, the regrade. I'm not sure how to word this, but depending on if it's something like Celestial, Divine, Epic, depending on whatever regrade level it's at, you get a certain amount of Lunagems. As you can see, this Divine Fist, it has 5, I believe. So I believe Epic would have 6, Legendary would have 7, and then Mythic would have 8. You basically get an extra Lunagem socket per regrade level up. And I believe Celestial would just have 1 less than this. And most people will probably be around Celestial at this time, which is fine. If you got a Divine or Epic, that's great. And that's definitely a time you want to start socketing Lunagems. I mean, honestly, you want to start at Celestial, because if you enhance your gear, your sockets stay the same, like they won't change. It'll just add another socket. But if you do regress, I believe you lose a socket. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Now, the first Lunagems I want to talk about are Honor Lunagems. And the reason I'm talking about this first is because this will be synonymous for all classes. Every class uses these Lunagems. And let's go ahead and go over some of those Lunagems. Now, the first one I want to talk about is the Toughness Lunagems. Of course, you would be wanting to buy the Arcane ones. There's no point in buying the blue ones with how much honor we'll be getting in Archeage Classic from doing CR, GR, Halcyona, regular honor gains. Just, there's plentiful honor to gain in Archeage Classic. So you want to make sure you're always buying the highest tier Lunagems you can with your honor. So once again, you want to go ahead and buy Toughness Lunagems for your pants. This is the same for every class, and the reason why you buy Toughness, let's go ahead and go over to the stats so I can show you why. What Toughness specifically does, it reduces the damage you take from same level targets, physical and magic attacks in PvP. Now, this is by far the best defensive Lunagem to have in your gear. You want it in every single piece that you can have, but sadly it's only your pants or your legs, which is your pants. And obviously you want to have as many sockets as possible. Of course, if you've ever played Archeage, you know gemming is one of the worst experiences in the game. The Darus behind Archeage Classic have tried to kind of curve that experience by at least giving you 2 guaranteed slots. So if, for example, you have Divine Fists, those first 2 slots and the 5 slots are guaranteed, which is awesome. But after that, it's RNG, and I'll go ahead and play like a little like GIF in the background just to show you what it looks like. It's a very miserable experience. You lose a lot of money doing this. I mean, you can get Super Luxac and get them all in one try, or you can be like Collision and never get his pants gemmed, and Celestrata will just meme you on the forums. That was a terrible time in Archeage. That's a dark Archeage history right there. If you know what that is, let me know in the comments. But man, that was that's terrible. But anyways, for your first honor gem that you want to be buying is toughness, and putting as many of those into your pants as you can get. Now the next honor gem is also a defensive honor gem. It's resilience, and what resilience does, it decreases critical rate and critical damage bonus from, of course, same level target. So what that means is the person that's fighting you has less crit rate and crit damage bonus against you, which is amazing since a lot of people focus on crit and crit damage, especially Dark Runners specifically, and mages, of course, specifically. This is also the universal gem, and I believe this gem is in your chest piece. Yeah, just your chest piece. So far we have 2 pieces of your 7 pieces of gear for your Lunagems, and you see that it's your chest and your legs, your 2 most important pieces, and you want to fill that up with resilience and as much toughness as you can. Now on to the next important honor gem, and by far the most important one in my opinion. Even more important than toughness. I would say toughness is second, resilience is third. But it would be focus. And let's go ahead and look at what focus does. And this is the same for all classes. I believe all classes should have their weapons primarily focused on focus. Because what focus does is it ignores a certain amount of block, parry, and evasion. So you basically penetrate the other target's block, parry, and evasion. Very useful. As you know, or may not know, in Archeage, block and parry isn't a mitigation in this patch, in 3.0 specifically. It is complete damage. It just ignores the damage. So if you see parry or block, that means they just took 0 damage, and evasion as well. So the reason you want to stack up on this, and more specifically for melee, I believe mages can get away with not using focus as a Lunagem for their weapons, since the only thing they really have to worry about is evasion. I don't think you can block and parry magic attacks, that's not a thing. But more specifically melee, like Dark Runners and Blade Dancers, whatever melee class you're playing, and if you're an archer as well, physical attack classes mostly, they want to have as much focus as possible, because ignoring this parry, evasion, and block rate is essential to having your damage come out in Archeage. Now, along with Lunagems, as you can see here, most Lunagems are made by Handicraft, and there are a ton of Lunagems, so it's kind of hard to grasp like which Lunagems are good. But I'll go ahead and go over that for you right now. And before, well, we'll talk about that later actually, but let's go ahead and look at some of these Lunagems and see which ones are pretty much the best to use for your class. Now first, we'll go ahead and look at the Lucid Fire Lunagems. Now, for melee and ranged, in my opinion, I don't believe you would use these. You would use the Focus Lunagems instead, but as a mage, I believe most mages went ahead and used these, the magic attack ones. I believe it was Salvation. No, it must have been Apex. Yes, so if you're a mage, I believe that, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but there's not really a need for focus as a mage, since the only way people would dodge your attack, it wouldn't be through a block or parry, it'd be through an evade, and most people don't really build evade, except archers, since they build agility, and you kind of just win that matchup anyways. So most mages opt for magic attack increase. Very good choice. Of course, if you are playing a melee DPS or a range DPS, you can also go ahead and use these Lucid Fire Lunagems. I wouldn't suggest it, and as a healer, of course healers don't need focus, so they would be using healing power. This would probably be their best bet. Or at least one of their choices, because I believe there's a crit one. But we'll go ahead and look at that and see if there is one. Now we're on to the Lucid Gale Lunagems. These Lunagems will be going in your ranged weapon, your instrument, and your undergarments when undergarments come out, but mostly your ranged weapon and instrument for the start of the game. Some very good choices. You have attack speed is a good choice. As a mage, you have cast time as an option. I believe this is what most mages opt for, cast time. Defense penetration. Now, as a melee and an archer, you can either go attack speed or defense pen. I believe defense pen is very strong in this game, especially since the defense tree is actually a thing in this version of Archeage. But of course, this is preference. You can obviously go attack speed if you feel like you need attack speed, or defense pen if you need defense pen. But I'm here to tell you that defense pen is usually kind of a king stat in this game. Of course, if you reduce someone's defense as low as possible, you can just one-shot them, one-tap them, one snipe, put them out of commission, one precision strike, put them out of commission. So I would opt for defense pen, in my opinion. But of course, if you're using a two-hand, you feel like you lack that attack speed, you feel like the Canadian servers are holding you down, they're holding you back, of course you can go attack speed. Now we are at the Lucid Earth Lunagems. Of course, once again, this is all preference. Now there's evasion, you can sock it into your hands. There's parry rate you can sock into your hands. There's max mana increase. I don't think anyone really uses these. I think it's like probably pretty niche for like a healer or something like that. This goes in your head, wrists, and waist, but for the Lucid Earth Lunagems, you're pretty much concerned with your hands. Now, depending on your main stat, if your main stat is like agility, you might want to stack more evasion. If your main stat is strength or stam, you want to stack more parry rate. This is the one that I would use as a Dark Runner. I would put some more parry rate so I can parry more attacks. And I believe, yes, move speed in your feet. I believe this is just the best universal Lunagem to go in your feet. Move speed is very nice. Could help you get out of sticky situations. Backpedal a few attacks without using mobility skill, things like that. And of course, you have shield block rate increase. This goes into your shield. And if you're using a shield, this is probably the one that you want to put into your shield. Another great Lunagem is the Magic Defense Penetration Lunagem. Of course, this is the Gale Lunagem, so it goes into range weapon, instrument, undergarments. So if you are a mage, this is probably the one that you want to put in those 3 slots. And that should wrap it up for the Gale, Earth, and the Fire Lunagems. So those are some of the best choices for those Lunagems. Now there are some more special Lunagems. I wouldn't really suggest these. Well, actually these go in your wrists and things like that, so you pretty much do where you do use these. And once again, this is very specific to class, so you want to make sure that you read these very carefully. And of course that you use this tree. Now, as you can see, the Battle Rage one increases triple slash damage. You have a Witchcraft one, increases mitigation. Aromancy increases liberation duration. Some of these are kind of useless, but some of these are pretty good. Like the Battle Rage one is pretty decent. I believe the defense one is okay. Nah, not really. So once again, you would just look at these and see if you would use these. Arc lightning damage, I guess, is okay. Honestly, these are not very appealing. I mean, even the Battle Rage one is kind of iffy. It's just pretty much your auto attack increases your damage. I mean, it's pretty good. I think the only good one, honestly, be the Battle Rage one. If you're a Dark Runner, of course. Or whatever class you're using that uses triple slash. And Battle Rage, of course. But make sure you you look at these because these are kind of baits. Like, I don't think any of these other ones are good, but I think these are one of the few gems that do go into your wrist slot. So it's not too bad to consider one of these. And if you're a Dark Runner, of course, these triple slash ones are pretty decent. And once again, there's the same class Lunagems for your waist. Just make sure to check if any of them are good for your specific build. Honestly, I don't really think these gems are too good. I think there's better things you can put in your waist and your wrists. But maybe this, like Fervent Healing for healer, would be pretty good in your waist. And finally, we are here at the most important part, which is the Lucid Refined Lunagems. Now, these, if you played Unchained, I think they were called Luna Scales. And Luna Scales were basically 100% guaranteed. They just go on your gear. You just have to pay an obscene amount of money. In Archeage Classic and 3.0 and before, what we had was Lucid Refined Lunagems. Now, these are very important. You will pretty much be using one of these all the time. Oh, and before I forget, and your things in like your wrists and your guards, like this slot that I was talking about. What was that slot called? Your wrist, yeah. So your wrist and your belt. I believe like physical defense and magic defense are just the best Lunagems in there. Let's see if I can go ahead and find that real quick. Yeah, so just your basic physical defense and your basic magic defense. I think those are just the best used inside those slots. And of course, like your head and things like that. There are many Lunagems in this game, and there's many different builds. At the end of the video, I'll go ahead and go into a gear calculator to talk like more specifically what each type of class or type of damage, like magic damage, range damage, and physical damage, what type of Lunagem setup they should use. Because I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, but just take this whole segment as more so like what Lunagems are good as a choice. But let's go ahead and talk about the refined Lunagems. Now, the reason why these are so important, come over here and just read this random one. In the description, you can see like the first two lines. The failure to socket this Lunagem does not destroy your previously socketed Lunagems. Now, of course, it says the number of previously socketed Lunagems may decrease the chance of success. So what that means is the more Lunagems you have in a socket, so let's see, like a divine, you have like 4 or 5, or like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, if you have like, wait, how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So if you have like 4, you'll have a pretty low chance at socketing this last Lucid Refined Lunagem in, but the very positive plus side to this is that your previous gems will not break. So a very popular strategy when you're, of course, like for your weaponing, for example, you go ahead and get as much focus as possible. You would leave one last slot, and you would just go ahead and slot like a magic attack in, or go ahead and slot like a melee attack in, or something like that. Now, these will probably be pretty expensive, like very expensive. I mean, these are by no means easy to get. So by the time, like for example, like if you're a melee or ranged DPS and you're slotting focus in, honor really isn't a currency that costs. I mean, it costs to socket the Lunagem itself, and it could be pretty costly. But around the time you're able to afford this, you might get lucky and luck out and go ahead and have like a full weapon socketed focus. But if you're very unlucky and you don't want to leave it up to RNG, this is a very good strat to just put one of these in your last slot. Now, for weapon, I don't think it's worth. I would try and get as much focus as possible. But for things like your defensives, like your magic defense and your defense, I believe these are very worth to put in your last slot for Lunagems. But this is a very, very good way to avoid that last socket like nightmare where you have all your sockets filled. You're like, all right, I'm going to put this last one in, and they all just disappear, and you have to start all over again, and all your money's gone. So that goes ahead and wraps up all the Lunagems I wanted to talk about. Now I'll get a little bit more specific and try and find like a class builder and put some of the Lunagems I feel that would be good for each class. So let's go ahead and get to that. All right, so after a lot of struggling, apparently the AA Calc, the RU, the EN version doesn't work. But I was able to like Google Translate and I didn't put everything in. As you can see, it's like a mess. I'll try to explain for like each class. Obviously, the easiest class for me to explain is obviously Dark Runner, which is a melee DPS. But I'll try and include some. I'll try and say what the gems you would use for range and magic is. But let's go ahead and hop into it. Now, don't mind the gear in here. Don't mind the regrade level. Don't mind the names. I'm going to explain what it is. But let's go ahead and get started what your gear would look like mid-game towards endgame. Now, this is a disclaimer on this piece of gear. You see this PvP attack resistance gem. I know heroes are in Archeage Classic. There was this hero Luna scale. I think it gave like toughness or something like that. I honestly can't remember what it is. This says PvP attack resistance. I don't know what that means, but there is a hero Lunagem that you can buy from heroes. You get it as getting a hero. I don't know if that's in this version of Archeage. Please let me know and let everybody else know in the comments if that is in this version of Archeage. But I put it in here. I included it anyways because that is the best gem you can possibly put in your helmet. And I'm going to go ahead and say for all classes. And just to keep that in the back of your head. Now, it would be extremely expensive. You'd obviously have to get a hero. You'd have to open the hero box and get the gem, or have like a hero sell it to you. Very unlikely if they're probably in this private server. Very unlikely because everyone's a PvP or private servers usually. But well, you know, you go ahead and see and scope it out. But that's just if that's in the game. Now, as you can see, for the Lunadrop, I just put the strength one in here. Here, it would be strength if you're a melee. It would be intelligence if you're a magic DPS. It'd be agility if you're an archer. And it would be spirit if you're a healer. Now, please remember those 4 stats. I don't want to keep repeating it. So, once again, spirit if you're a healer. Melee DPS strength. Range DPS, aka archer, agility. And magic DPS intelligence. Those are your main stats. And this is the Lunadrop that you put in. And remember, this is 100% guaranteed. This doesn't break. Now, as you can see here, it's not really represented well, but this is like the second slot, and this is like the last slot in your gear. Now, I opted resistance in this case as a magic defense. Now, Archeage is always a mage ball. And once again, this will be pretty much the same for every class. The only thing you would swap out is the Lunadrop. And if you're cloth armor, you'd probably put physical defense. So if you're like a healer or magic DPS instead of instead of magic defense, it would be regular defense. But if you're a melee, you're going to get blended by tons of revenants, tons of magic DPS and a raid focus. So you want to just have as much magic defense as possible in your gear. Of course, this is preference. You can put defense if you so wish, but I would put magic defense. Now, as you can see, the way I have it slotted out, these are just regular gems. I don't know, it's kind of like hard to show you because it's all like getting Google translated, but these are just the regular magic resist gems. Let's see if I can find those again. So this resistance is magic defense, just keep that in mind. Now you would slot all of your gems, all your first slots, regular magic resistance, and then you would go ahead and put that lucid refine Lunagem that I was talking about, that's 100% guaranteed, into your final slot. Remember, it's going to be costly, but it's definitely going to be worth it. You don't have to worry about it breaking. The only thing that happens is that this gem will break and then you have to buy another one slotted in, but it's better than every single one of your gems breaking, trust me. But this is what your helmet would sort of look like, and it's the same for every class. Every time it's like a defense, it would look the same. Of course, if you're cloth armor, replace this with regular defense. And if you're leather armor, you can choose between defense or magic defense, but if you're plate, magic defense. for sure. Now let's move on to the next piece, the chest. As you can see, the damage taken reduced, honor, Lunafrost. This is the same for every class. You don't have to worry. Magic, melee, what was it again? Range DPS, archer. The only class that would probably be different, actually. This is the same for every class. The chest piece will be the same. So you'd pretty much put resilience. Crit damage resistance is resilience. And the reason why I don't have a refined lucid Luna scale is because it's honor. You always get honor. You don't have to worry about it breaking. You just keep slapping it in until it's fully put in there. The honor Lunagems are kind of like that. You just want to keep slapping it in and hoping it all goes. Of course, it costs money to do that still, but it's better than buying an expensive gem and then having that break over and over again when the honor gems are essentially free. You get them from playing. And once again, the chest piece will be the same for all 4 class archetypes. Mage DPS, range DPS, melee DPS, and healer. The chest remains the same. Now on to the belt. Now the belt, I opted to just put magic resist. And of course your Lunadrop is your main stat, so your main stat according to class, like I said at the beginning of this segment of the video. Now, nothing too special. Once again, just regular magic resist and a lucid magic resist at the end of your slot to guarantee that the rest of your other ones don't break. And pretty much the same for every class. It's a defensive slot. Once again, if you're cloth, you'd put physical defense. If you're plate, you'd put magic defense. And if you're leather, you can decide between which one you feel weakest to at the point in time. But I highly suggest magic defense because once again, Archeage is the mage ball game. Now for the wrists, as you can see here, for Dark Runner, I would suggest the triple strike if you're looking for more damage. It'd be more defensive, and I also forgot to put the Lunadrop in here, but it'd just be your main stat, of course. Now for all the other classes, once again, just a defensive slot. Don't even worry about the triple strike. That's just specific to Dark Runner only. I feel like that's the only good, like, class tree Lunagem that can actually go into your wrists. But for every other class, it would just be another defensive and putting your main stat once again. Now the cloak. Once again, we're not paying attention to what the cloak says. It says move speed. Don't worry about that. Now, the cloak. There's no gems in cloak, but you do put the Lunafrost in, or the Lunadrop. I believe in this case it is a Lunafrost. I forgot which one it is. But anyways, you put the perfect one inside your gear. Of course, depending on your main stat. So just make sure it's the correct main stat. I cannot find this one in here. This is like actually insanely mess jumble. But anyways, as you can see, the strength one, if you're a strength class, intel, spirit, same deal. And I talked about it at the beginning of the video. You can always just hop back into the beginning to see what Lunafrosts are there, or Lunadrop if it's a Lunadrop. Now the pants, once again, same for every class. You opt, the PvP attack resistance is toughness. So you go ahead and opt for the toughness Lunafrost, which is also honor, and just straight up as much toughness as you can get. You just keep going. You just keep slapping it in there. And once again, same for every class, no difference. This is what every class's PvP, or sorry, not PvP, what their pants should look like, full of toughness. And finally, for the last gear slot, we get to legs. Now, I went ahead to opt for toughness. I believe toughness is the best in here, for all classes, of course. As much toughness as possible, it's just less damage. And then I went ahead and put move speed. Now, this is preference. I like move speed as a melee DPS. And then my last one would be a lucid defense. Now, of course, you can just put full defense if you need defense. And once again, cloth would use physical defense, plate would use magic defense, and leather, you have your choice, of course. But this is what you would flex out. And as you can see, the gears are pretty defensive pieces. They're not very offensive. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned the gloves, but I'll go ahead and mention this again. I have parry rate in here. If you're an archer, you would want, and this is going to be like a nightmare to find, but you would want, here we go, evasion. Evasion as an archer or a magic DPS or a healer. Now, I took parry rate because I'm a dark runner, so I would obviously use parry rate because I want to negate damage as much as possible. And as a dark runner, I would fill it up completely with parry rate. I wouldn't even use the lucid Lunagem, and I'm not even sure if this goes in this slot, but I just put it in here because that's what was available apparently. This site is kind of like hit or miss, honestly, especially since it's in a different language. But I would fill this as much parry rate as possible. And if you can't parry, of course, if you're like a ranged DPS or magic DPS or healer, I would put evasion in here just to try and negate more damage. Now the jewelry, pretty self-explanatory. Looks like none of them saved, but okay, this one's saved. Once again, don't pay attention to what the gear piece in the slot is. I just slapped random stuff in here and put it all at Celestial for like a mid-game example. Now, if you are melee, you put melee attack power. And once again, so the Lunafrost doesn't break. Magic, magic attack power, range attack power, healer, healing power. Very simple. And that goes in all of your jewelry. That's the best Lunafrost for all your jewelry. And now we come down to weapon. I use a two-hand weapon in here so I can do less clicking because this is a nightmare. But for your Lunafrost, you put additional melee skill damage. I believe you can put magic skill damage, but as a ranged, I don't know if you can put ranged attack in here into your melee weapon. And once again, this is just two-hand. Of course, if you're ranged, you'd be like using like daggers or something like that, so you'd have like 2 slots filled here. But once again, for all classes, I believe, except for mage and healer, you would be using focus, and of course your melee or ranged DPS. And once again, I'm not sure if you can put ranged DPS in here, because I know in the ranged weapon you can only put range skill damage, sadly. So even as a melee, you'd just have a ranged skill damage Lunafrost in there or whatever. If you can get a main stat one here, something like that, you can just slap that in there. But as a melee, additional melee skill damage, everything filled with focus. And same thing with Archer, everything filled with focus. Both of your daggers, just all focus. And once again, try and look into the Lunafrost that you can put in. You obviously don't want melee damage in there since you're not really using melee. You want range damage if you can, and if you can't do that, just slap in the main stat like agility. And magic DPS would specifically use magic attack in here. And if the gem exists magic crit damage, I don't believe it does. I think it's just magic attack. So you would just slap magic attack. And please, once again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I did not remember seeing magic crit damage in the folio when I was looking through it. I tried to look, I couldn't find it. But if that is in the game, you will want magic crit damage, of course. But if not, magic attack power and healing, the same exact scenario. You want healing power, and if healing crit power is in there, some weird naming stat, you'd want that. And of course, the Lunafrost you can put in is healing power for like your club or whatever. You can slap that in there, no problems. Now, if you are using a shield, if you're a healer, I believe, and please once again correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the only gems you can use in here are shield block rate, so you just fill this up with shield block rate, gems, healer, tank, whatever you're using a shield for. I do not remember what Lunadrop goes in here. I don't think it's main stat. I think it's like a special shield Lunagem. You would have to look it up. Not really too well versed in shield classes. But your gems in here would just be shield block rate. I don't believe you can put healing crit power in here or healing power. And once again, I would like to reiterate, everywhere that has melee attack power, obviously for your damage type, magic, ranged, healing, if there is a crit, like if it's like, for example, like melee crit power or range crit power, in place of the melee attack power, you'd put crit, and once again, for your damage type, you would obviously go crit over attack power. I just put the attack power because those were the only gems I could find. especially in the folio when I was going over to gems, I couldn't find crit. And now we go to the bow. The bow would obviously look different for every class. It'd be magic attack, and once again, magic crit if it exists. And for melee, melee attack, range, ranged, etc. Now, I believe the only Lunafrost that goes in here is the range skill bonus, so you just slap that in here. I believe I had that as a Dark Runner as well, back when I played in like original Archeage, like 2.9, 3.0. This could change, but that's just, it is what it is. I just slapped that in there. And finally, the instrument. Once again, just fill in your specific DPS type or healing, obviously. And this is the same. You put the melee attack power Lunafrost, and you go ahead and slap it with a bunch melee attack power. And once again, if the crit exists, crit. Now that is pretty much it for gems. Once again, gems consist of Lunagems, Lunafrosts, Lunadrop, and specifically the underwear Lunatear. I didn't put the underwear in because the underwear is very simple. You just slap the Lunatear in, and that will be coming later in the game anyways. But now let's go ahead and go to tempering. And tempering is, honestly, it's pretty easy to explain. Now let's go ahead and explain tempering. Tempering is very simple. I'm not going to explain how to get the tempers. There's like one way I know for sure you get tempers. The way to get tempers is the loyalty token shop. You get the prime weapon temper for weapons. You get the armor for armor. It's very simple. Nothing like too extravagant, too complicated. It's a very simple system. It's very RNG heavy, of course. Now you would just go here, go into the tempering. As you can see, it says pre-temper DPS 80.9. Now, as you can see here, tempering, when you temper gear, costs 100 labor, costs, I don't think it costs money. Don't quote me on that. But once again, costs labor, and then you have a chance to roll a certain percentage. You can roll 111%, which is the low, and 115, which is the high. Now, these are just on the prime weapon tempers. I believe there are regular tempers that roll lower than this. I think it was like 105% or something like that. So you kind of just want to get these tempers. This is a very endgame thing, very min-max once you're finished with everything. I wouldn't really worry about tempering until you get to that super endgame, like even after like T4 Obsidian or something like that. I wouldn't really, it's like such a minuscule amount of increase of gear, but it does make a difference when you put on all your gear, especially your armor. It's a lot of extra defenses. Now, you would just slap this in here, you'd click temper, you'd roll between 111 and 115. You pray for 115, and if you don't get it, you just keep doing it over and over again. No chance of like breaking or anything like that. Of course, you can get a lower temper. If you have 114, you can go lower to like 111. It's just the name of the game. And that is pretty much it for this video. There is nothing else that I think I have to cover before Archeage Classic comes out. I think with all my videos and all the other content creators, you're pretty much ready to play this game. Caught up to the veterans with their like 7 years of experience and their knowledge. Of course, Archeage is a very player-friendly game, player choice. It's a sandbox game. All these things are just suggestions. They're not best in slot. It's like just my experience of what was meta in the past. And of course, you're free to explore for yourself. You can change it up. I highly suggest you don't change it up too insane, like using magic power on a melee DPS, but you can do whatever you want to do. And that is really the beauty of Archeage, and why Archeage Classic is definitely going to be the best server and the best Archeage experience that we will possibly have for years to come. I don't think Archeage 2 would give us a good experience. Still XL game, so. But that is it for this video. I hope it helped. I hope you enjoyed. I hope to see you August 4th. Leave a like, leave a dislike, subscribe. Hope you guys have a great day. Take it easy. Peace out.